Welcome to Emily Morrow and all of our viewers today. Emily, let's start with some background. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into counselling?
Sure. So my background's a little bit unusual in the sense that I started out as a lawyer doing family law for quite a few years. And I found that although the law offered many answers and solutions for clients, that increasingly I wanted to be working with people at a deeper level. So I went back to university and got a degree in counseling at the University of Auckland.
Emily, how would you describe your approach to counselling?
Well, I would say that I combine a warm and empathic approach with being practical and direct with clients. You might say that I combine my counseling skills with some of the skills as a lawyer in terms of being able to do problem solving and help people work through the problems that are important to them in their lives.
Thanks, Emily. For counselling individuals, what are the kinds of issues you commonly address in your practice?
Well, I often find myself working with clients in the areas of stress and anxiety, also grief and loss. Family estrangement is another topic, isolation and depression. And I also work with clients who are in relationship with someone who has narcissistic personality traits and is experiencing gaslighting.
Can you give us some insights into how you approach your counselling in these areas? Firstly, in relation to stress and anxiety.
Well, I would say that the starting point working with stress and anxiety is in the counseling relationship to create a calm and comfortable environment and help the individual to develop skills to keep that calm approach throughout their lives so that it generalizes to other parts of their life.
And what about your approach to grief and loss?
Well, I would say that in terms of grief and loss, that what I try to do is focus on how the experience is meaningful for the individual and how they'd like to take that experience to rebuild their lives and move on beyond that loss and that pain, if to the extent possible.
You also mentioned narcissism and gaslighting. Can you explain a little more how you handle these areas?
Yes, what I find is that it's important to identify what exactly is going on in that relationship with that individual. To what extent are there narcissistic personality traits going on there? Is gaslighting occurring? And then working with the client on ways to decide how to manage themselves in relation to that interaction with the other.
And what about poor self-confidence and low self-esteem?
Well, what I try to do is to understand what it is that is undermining that person's self-confidence and to identify the self-defeating thoughts the individual might be having, and then to build on that to create a more positive sense of self and how to change interactions with others consistent with that.
You also mentioned isolation and loneliness. What's your approach there?
You know, it's interesting, Paul, in our world today where people are connected with each other in so many ways remotely, what I have found is that many people have lost the ability to, what you might say, the fine art of building friendships and building community. And that's something I've always loved to do in my life. And I work with clients around different strategies to expand their social networks and to bring more joy into their lives.
Thanks, Emily. And finally, in this area, what about situations involving family estrangement?
You know, the interesting thing is that if you scratch the surface on almost any family dynamic, you'll find that somebody is out of relationship with someone else. So my focus is helping clients understand what's going on in that dynamic and what kinds of approaches are going to be helpful. Should the focus be on reconciling, or should it be on moving on with your life outside of that relationship, or something in between?
Coming now to couples and counselling involving couples, what is your approach there? Are there significant differences, for example, in working with couples as opposed to working with individuals?
Well, in working with individuals, what I find is that the focus is on self-awareness and self-actualization. It's more around the focus on the individual and how the individual is managing him or herself or his or her relationships. Whereas working with couples, the focus is on the dynamic between the two individuals, so that in a sense, the relationship, that the client relationship is with the relationship between the two individuals rather than one individual or the other.
We know that confidentiality is such an important matter in counselling, but what is your approach when it comes to couples?
Yeah. When I work with individuals, all of the work that I do is confidential completely. When I work with couples, as to any people outside of that relationship, my work is confidential. But between the two partners, whatever one partner tells me, I will share with the other. So, in other words, I do not keep secrets between partners, and I find that that works well.
While obviously maintaining confidentiality of the people concerned, Emily, can you share any success stories or particularly rewarding experiences you've had with a client or couple?
Well, I would say that as to the work with couples, the most rewarding thing consistently is when a couple comes to me and they're on the brink of parting ways, and it's very distressing for them. And through reframing their relationship, working with them on communication and conflict management and so forth, I'm able to bring them back together. Very, very rewarding and joyful experience. I would say with individuals, the thing I find most rewarding is to work with someone who is very high potential, but is struggling in one way or another, and to build their self-esteem, to build their quality of life, and to give them the opportunity really to kind of actualize and reinvent themselves to some extent.
Emily, we can imagine that some people might feel hesitant in considering counselling. What advice would you give to those people?
You know, Paul, sometimes I sense that there's a bit of a stigma around seeking out counseling because it might be an admission that you have a problem or a weakness or whatever. But instead, in my experience, what I have found is that it's actually a sign of strength and resilience to seek out counseling and to really focus on the opportunity to improve your life and your relationships.
Thanks, Emily. How can people reach out to you if they want to learn more about your services?
Well, probably the best way is to take a look at my website. There's all of the information you need about contacting me. And also, I offer a 15-minute free Zoom or phone consultation before I start working with clients, just to make sure that the chemistry is going to be good that it's going to fit between the two of us. And obviously, that's a decision that only the client can make. So I offer that, and I would encourage anyone who's interested in working with me to look at my website and learn more.
Emily, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you and finding out all about your counselling practice. And thanks also to our audience for tuning in.